Hi, I'm Preston Williams, and welcome to another edition of Jazz Talk. Today on our show, we have a very special guest, and I'm so excited to have him on today. He's been on the scene for over 35 years and has worked with so many greats from Eric Clapton to Steely Dan, Pat Metheny, Joe Sample, Bette Midler, and for 13 years, he was an integral part of the legendary, iconic band Earth, Wind, and Fire. He's a drummer, percussionist, and songwriter. Please welcome to Jazz Talk, Mr. Sonny Emory. How you
What up?
doing?
I'm great, Preston. How are you, buddy?
Good, good, man. It's so good, like I said, to have you on. Been trying to get you on for a while. Sonny, as I said, as I opened the show, you've been on the scene, man, for such a long time. You're one of the world's greatest drummers. And, we know about you and just the different bands and stuff that you've been in, but we don't know too much about your humble beginnings and your upbringing, how you got involved in music. And I understand that you are from Atlanta, Georgia.
Yeah, born and raised here. I'm indigenous. So,
Well, tell
yeah,
us, man. Tell us about your upbringing, your humble beginnings, and how all this began.
well, first of all, man, I just want to congratulate you on such a beautiful format that you have going here. And
Thank you, brother. Thank
it's
you.
an honor to be a part of the company of cats that you've selected to interview for this thing, man. So congratulations to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sonny.
Yeah, I grew up in Atlanta. I grew up in a musical family. My mom, dad, and my grandparents were all musicians. And my grandfather played piano and organ. My dad played sax and piano and all the brass instruments. Both of my parents were educators. My dad was a music educator. My mom was an early childhood specialist. So
Hmm.
I was engulfed in education from day one, and I was engulfed in music. I started playing drums at the age of 4, man. And
Wow, that's incredible.
yeah, but I was jamming around the house with my dad and my grandpops, and I was just learning everything that they played, and all the jazz that my dad played for me. The story goes that when my mom and dad brought me home from the hospital, my dad had Miles on. I see he's behind you. That's my
Yeah,
cat, man.
yeah, yeah,
That's my guy, man. And
yeah,
and my dad shoved my bassinet right up against the record player then with old school floor models, right?
yeah.
Pushed me right up against there, and Miles was playing, and I've gotten an earful ever since then. So, that was at birth, man. So it's just, it started really early for me,
Yeah, yeah,
and I was just really, truly blessed, man, to have parents who recognized it, you know what I mean, and nurtured the gift that God had given me. And so I'm just grateful, man, to even be, amongst, everybody says, how does it feel to be, you like, great like that, or one of the great. I'm just humbled to call Dennis Chambers and Steve Gadd and
yeah,
these guys, my contemporaries, friends of mine too, though. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And that
They're
I
great
learned from all
guys.
those guys.
Yeah, yeah. Sonny, I was going to ask you, like I said, coming up, starting at 4 years old playing drums, was your father exposing you to a lot of the drummers like the Max Roaches, Art Blakey's, Roy Haynes? When you
Oh,
listen,
definitely, man. Yeah. Yeah, I was playing along to Elvin Jones and Max, Philly Joe Jones,
yeah,
all the jazz masters, man. Louis Bellson, I mean, all of them, across the board. Gene Krupa, Sonny Payne, just Billy Higgins.
yeah,
I mean, the cats, man. So I was, I mean, a lot of people don't know. I grew up and I started playing jazz. Jazz was the very first thing that I started playing.
mm,
Even before I started studying any of the classical stuff and the other percussion instruments and songwriting and that stuff. Uh, Jazz was, I'm a jazz guy. My roots are jazz roots.
yeah, yeah. That's great. And so all throughout, like, say, school, before you even went to college, were you playing in like local bands during that time in Georgia?
Yeah, yeah, yep. I was really playing a lot with my group and my dad's group,
Hmm.
and I was playing 7 nights a week at one point.
Wow.
Yeah, I started when I was like a junior in high school and went all the way through my college years. There was a club here called Walter Mitty's.
Okay.
I was playing constantly, and I was doing casuals too, man, putting on the tux, setting up the kit 2 or 3 times a day by myself. And in the rain, tuxedo gets wet, you got to go sit down and play for 2 hours in the air conditioning.
Right.
You
Right.
know, so yeah, man, I did a lot of local stuff like that, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I didn't really start traveling until I did one tour with the Georgia State University Chorus Gospel Choir. It was short, just a little southeastern tour. That was
Hmm.
the very first tour that my parents let me do, and then after that, I got a call to do Cameo, and that was my first touring, professional touring situation. You know.
Wow. So after high school, you went to Georgia State University and went on and got it together.
Hmm.
And I guess you developed more and you come out of that. And wasn't one of your early gigs with Joe Sample and the Crusaders, man?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Joe is the reason why. Well, he took me to LA. He basically jump started my career.
Wow.
Yeah, nationally and internationally. Because up until then, I only international acts that I or national acts that I had played with were Cameo and Jean-Luc Ponty.
Wow.
Yeah, and short stints with both of those artists. But then, yeah, Joe Sample took me to LA. He was here in Atlanta playing a festival, the Atlanta
Yeah.
Arts Festival. He was in town. Lee Ritenour was in town. Patty Austin, Jimmy Haslip, and the Yellow Jackets, and
Yeah.
all those cats were on the bill. I got a call to put together the band. My band was playing the after party, and that's when I met Joe. He heard me play. That's the same night I met Lee Ritenour. He heard me play, and I mean, the rest was history, man. And that night, his manager, who is my manager now, Sonny Emory, who managed, show you how it's all connected, uh, came over to me and said, "Hey, man, Joe really digs your playing," because Joe sat in with us.
Yeah.
He said, "Man, Joe really digs your playing." He said, "Would you be interested in, coming to LA and, playing with Joe?" I was like, "Yeah." Because I was planning on moving to LA after college anyway. This is the summer of '86.
Right. Right.
I'd been out of state for about a year, and I was gigging. I was so busy doing sessions here and stuff, and I had my band, and I was just all in. So about a year after I finished Georgia State, man, I packed up everything and moved to Los Angeles. And like they say, the rest is history, man. It just kind of starts snowballing for me after, at that point.
Well, obviously, your reputation must have just, went before you because I guess it got to the ears of Maurice White and Earth, Wind and Fire. And by 1987,
Yeah.
you were part of this band, man. Tell me, how did that happen? I mean, how did you meet Maurice and those guys?
Man, it was really, really, my connection to the fire initially began with a guy named Oliver Wells. Great. You know Oliver?
He's from DC, man.
Yeah, yeah, right, exactly. So Oliver, man, helped raise me musically. Oliver was playing at this club that I was playing at every night, Walter Mitty's.
Yeah.
So in the interim, he was also doing a lot of production work. He was producing a gospel project with for Philip.
Okay.
Okay. And I played on some of that stuff, for Philip here locally. And Philip heard it. And Oliver was asked to actually write some songs for the Touch the World
Yeah.
project, which we toured on.
Mm-hmm.
Oliver wrote the title track, Touch the World.
Right. Right.
And so Maurice heard about me through Oliver and Philip, basically. Philip basically told Maurice about me. Joe Sample also told Maurice about me because Joe and Maurice were pretty tight.
Yeah.
Maurice told me that later, that he said, "Yeah, man, Joe told me about you." You know what I mean? And Lee Ritenour also told me, he said, "Yeah, man, your name was floating around LA before you got here." Yeah, everybody was like, "What is, yeah, check this cat out." So I was just trying to be that, just as visible as I could be. And I ended up, when I got the call to do Earth, Wind and Fire, when Philip actually called me, I was actually on the road with David Sanborn.
Wow.
And the tour was supposed to roll until the fall of '87. Yeah. I think we were supposed to be out with David until maybe September or something, right? And originally, Maurice and Philip, they wanted to, rehearse then. So Philip calls me and I'm at my hotel room and I'm just kind of chilling, and he goes, "Man, this is no," I called my roommate to get my messages, because it's old school. You had to check the
Right,
box
right.
for your messages, right? So he calls, I call home, and Sam Sims was my roommate at the time, bassist who's played with Janet Jackson, a whole bunch of other folks too, right?
Yeah.
So he goes, "Hey man, Philip Bailey just called here looking for you." I was like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah." It's like, "Here's the number." He gives me Philip's number. I call Philip. Philip answers the phone, and I'm in shock now. It really is Philip Bailey on the other end. And he goes, "Yeah, man, I was just talking to Maurice, and we were just wondering if you'd like to join Earth, Wind, and Fire." I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Of course. And he said, and then we want to start rehearsing like next month or something like that, right? And I was like, "Oh man," I was like, I want to do the gig. I really want to do the gig, but I have a conflict. I'm not able to because I'm supposed to be on the road with David Sanborn up until a certain time. And I can't get out of this. We're in the middle of a tour. So Philip says, "Okay, hold on a minute. I'll call you back. Where are you? Give me the number where you are." So I gave him the number, hotel number, right? And I hang up the phone, and I'm sitting there waiting on him. He said he was going to call me back. So I'm sitting there waiting anxiously, and I'm like on my knees praying, "Lord, please, please let this work out." Please, please. So he calls back and he goes, "Hey man, I talked to Maurice, and we decided we're just gonna push rehearsals back until you're good. So when you get home, call me and we'll get together on the schedule." And I was just dropped to my knees. I was like, "Thank you, Lord."
Man, that's incredible. Yeah, because I remember when you guys went out on that tour, I think it was January '88 when you guys kicked that off. I
Exactly.
think it was Lakeland, Florida, too, as a
Yeah,
matter of
it was. It was.
yeah. See, I
And
got
I
a good
didn't
memory.
sleep. I didn't sleep. We were in Lakeland, Florida for 1 week because we finished up production rehearsals in Florida. And I
Yeah,
remember calling Verdine on the second or third day, because we were on the stage now, and it was about to get real. It was about to start for me, and I had just had so much anticipation and energy. I could not sleep. I called Verdine the second or third day. I was like, "Man, I can't sleep. I can't sleep, man. I'm so pumped up," because we were rehearsing all day, on the
right.
stage in the venue. I'm seeing the whole thing come together now. It's like, but not only, am I seeing it? I'm in it. I'm a part of it. It's
Yeah,
like, wow, man. 'Cause I'm a Earth, Wind, and Fire fan, man. And I used to go to the shows. The
oh,
last
yeah.
time the Let's Groove
Yeah, the
show.
Rays tour from '81, '82. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I sat 2 rows from the top of the Coliseum, the Omni. I wanted to see them that bad. I was like nosebleed, but I saw it.
That's great. And Sonny, let me ask you, what was your perception? I mean, what was like the first rehearsal like? Did you have to pinch yourself like, man, I'm with Earth, Wind, and Fire? Because every drummer wanted that chair. And
Yeah.
for you to get that, it's like, wow,
Wow. Yeah.
I'm really here, you
It
know?
was it was mind-boggling. The very first time that we actually played together, um, it was myself, Verdine, Sheldon, and at the time, Maurice hired this guy named Richard Smith, a
Yeah,
second
the
guitarist.
guitars, yeah.
Yeah. So it was just the four of us at rehearsal, and Maurice came, he just came through to see what was going on. So we were just playing some jams, and so when Maurice walked in, that's when it hit me. It really hit me. I was like, wow, that's Verdine standing right there with the bass in front of me, and that's Maurice White.
Right.
So it hit me in that little jam rehearsal, but see, man, that is such an extraordinary situation. I had several of those moments
Yeah.
where the magnitude of the band, even to this day, man. I was thinking about this the other day. It's like when you've been a part of Earth, Wind, and Fire, man, you've been a part of something that has touched millions and millions of
Oh
lives.
yeah. Oh yeah. You know,
So it's
even Miles Davis himself said my favorite group has got to be Earth, Wind, and Fire,
yeah,
you know?
right,
So,
exactly, man. So when you think about you're able and you've been blessed to be a part of it and to contribute, you know, your 2 cents to a situation that has touched that many people, the magnitude of it really kind of comes on you every now and then. And I still have those moments, even
yeah,
today, and well, it's been a minute since I left the band in 2000, you know what I mean? But man, that is just,
still with you, you know?
yeah, it's just, you just can't describe that feeling, man, And then once I got over the nerves and really start like locking in to what was happening. Because I mean, you know, Verdine and I and Maurice and I had a really special relationship. So the spirituality of the whole thing, and the magnitude of how important that was, and how this music was a tool to get that across and to enlighten and lift people. Once you grasp that power, and I locked up with that with Verdine, man, it was ridiculous, the energy on stage.
I can imagine. You know, just looking at some of those shows, Sonny. I mean, they were unbelievable. Especially that Touch the World tour. Everyone had anticipated because the band had been on hiatus for like 4 years or so. And when you guys came out, I remember I was like, man, who is that drummer? Who is that drummer? And then after the show, I got a tour book. I said, Sonny Emory, who is this? You know, because I didn't know who
Who
you
is
were.
this kid?
I said, but this boy is bad though. He's tight. He's tight. And like I said, man, you know, you really did. You brought something to that drum chair that I've talked to many people and said it's never been the same since. And everyone always says Sonny Emory is the best drummer that Earth, Wind, and Fire ever had. Period. Which I agree with. I don't care who disagrees
Oh,
with
thank
me.
you, man.
It's the truth, man. And your musicianship was incredible. And I remember just some of the things. I remember going to see you with the band when they were in Baltimore. It was May 1988. I still think I have my ticket stub. And I remember you twirling sticks and keeping time. I said, man, this dude is nice. He's real good. He's really good, you know, because I'd never seen that before. And
Yeah.
then I started reading up on you and of course, looking at your work. But, you know, you told a very interesting story, of course, years later, you know, working with the band. And then, of course, you know, Maurice got Parkinson's and had to stop touring. But when you were working on your, I believe, your debut recording, Hypnofunk,
Yeah.
you said that you and Maurice were working together because he co-produced that with you.
Yeah.
And I remember a story you told. You said one day he walked in the studio and he looked at you and said, Sonny, I'm passing you the baton.
Yeah, yeah, exactly,
Tell
man.
me about that,
That was
man.
a heavy day. That was a heavy day. I mean, Maurice, like I said, we had a special relationship because he was a drummer,
Right.
you know, and then I mean, you know, obviously he became a mentor to me, and
Yeah.
I was stuck up under him in the studio, you know, when we did all the Earth, Wind, and Fire stuff, and also he gave me that break, you
Yeah.
know. He gave me that break. He pulled me aside one day at rehearsal and said, I know you want to do your own thing. I'm gonna sign you. I was like, great. So he said, start writing. And he made me write, man, and write and write and write and write and write. The first batch of songs I brought in, he threw it all out. He threw all of them out. He said, we're not there yet. We don't have anything. But going back to the day when he told me that, we were in the middle of tracking Hypnofunk, my
Right.
WCB CD, which came out on Kalimba. And I was sitting at the console with him, and we were just listening down. We were grooving. Sessions are going great, and we had a great day. And then I just said, I looked over at him and I said, Reese, thank you, man. It just, you know, I'm learning so much. I'm so excited. I can't wait for this to come out. And, you know, he was like, well, you know, I'm passing the baton to you. He said, I'm passing the baton to you. And I, you know, like once again, like after you've been with Maurice for a while, you know, every now and then, I mean, you know, most of the time he's saying something really, really heavy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because he was a really serious cat and serious about the music, you know,
Yeah.
and the effect of the music. So, you know, all those nuggets, you know, he would hit you with that, and then just what he said would resonate with you. Like afterwards, it's like, wow, he really said that, you know.
Yeah.
So that has just driven me, man, to just be the very best musician I could possibly be in any circumstance, any situation, you know, because he demanded excellence,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and he was the leader's leader to me. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Maurice, I mean, you know, he got the best out of everybody in that band,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know.
You know, it's interesting. I saw him in an interview many years ago. He was just talking about working with family. And he said something really interesting. He says, if you're in a normal situation, he says, say, for instance, if you have someone in your band that couldn't cut apart, he said, you get someone else. But when you got your brothers in the band, he said, you want to show him how it goes and hope that he learns.
Mm-hmm.
And when I talked to Sheldon Reynolds, Sheldon had told me, he said, Maurice had a certain aura about him in that band that no one has. He said, you can just look at him He could just stand,
Yep.
in the center of the stage with a microphone. He didn't have to be jumping around or dancing. He could just stand there, and he just had that power, that
Commanding
majestic thing.
presence.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah,
Commanding
and
presence. I mean, he used to come. We all get on the stage like a typical sound check, and we just jamming out or whatever. Sometimes he come up and pick up the kalimba and get into the groove and start jamming with us, or go over to the timbales. But other times he would just walk out and walk to the middle of the stage, and the music would just stop because Reese is here. It's time to get busy. You know what I mean? Yeah.
incredible. Now, after you left Earth, Wind, and Fire in 2000, of course, you worked with a lot of different people. And as you mentioned, Lee Ritenour, a great guitarist. You still continue to play with him.
Mhm.
But I wanted to find out how you hooked up with Bette Midler, man. Working with her, what was that like?
Wow. Well, let her tell it. Well, Bet and I are really good friends too, and I played with her 20 plus years, man.
Yeah,
She said I did Paula Abdul's tour. I was MD on her tour,
yeah,
and at the time, Paula was the hottest pop star in the world, basically.
yeah,
And so Bet, Janet, anybody who was touring female wise, then they were all looking to who was hot female wise, staging, lighting, the band, you know what I mean? So Bet told me she got all of these tapes of everybody's tours, Paula's, everybody, and she saw me on one of those tapes. And she said, "Who is that? I want to find out who he is. Who is that guy?" And just so happens, Bobby Lau was her MD.
oh wow,
And
okay,
I worked with Bobby on his recordings before on the jazz side, And so Bobby was like, "Yeah, that's Sonny Emory." And so that's how I got hooked up with Bet. And man, that turned out to be a beautiful situation because I was in that band with Reggie Hamilton,
yeah,
Bobby Lau, Lenny Castro,
hmm,
Buzzy Featon. I mean, this band was like stacked with the
yeah,
guys. So we had a lot of fun. It was a real different experience for me, but I was able to draw on all of my college experience. And I went to Northside School of the Arts before I transferred and went to Frederick Douglass High School.
hmm,
Northside was a school of the arts, so I did, I was playing for Leonard Bernstein's Mass, Fiddler on the Roof, these types of productions. So, being able to go and do the thing with Bet was really cool because I got a chance to get back to reading charts, playing a variety of styles of music and just kind of having fun with it. And with a band like that, man, we went all over the place with the stuff, So that's how I hooked up with Bet. And I just, I loved her, she loved me, and she just kept calling. So I was like, cool, let's do it.
that's great, man. Great artist. What was it like working with Eric Clapton, man?
Man, Eric is such a sweetheart, man.
Yeah,
It was funny how we kind of hooked up. Well, the first time I actually played with Eric was on a session with David Sanborn. That tour, when I got the Earth, Wind, and Fire call, I was rehearsing in New York with David Sanborn. And David comes in and goes, "Hey, man, you want to do this session with me tonight over at Electric Later or wherever we were?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm just here rehearsing with you. I'm free." So I go over to the studio, man, and I walk in, and Eric is sitting on the couch. I had no idea he was going to be there.
wow,
So when David got there, David finally told me what we're doing. He's like, "Yeah, we're doing the Lethal Weapon 2 soundtrack with Clapton." I was like, "Oh, okay, cool, bet." So I met Eric that night, and we worked. We did a little bit of work that night for the
yeah,
soundtrack. They were basically cutting rhythm tracks, bass and drum tracks that night, But David, being one of the featured artists, and Eric being the featured artist, obviously they were there to produce the stuff. And Tom Barney and I were really the only ones recording that night. We were doing all these scenes with just bass and drums, bass and drums. And so Eric was really cool. He's really quiet, man. He's such a sweetheart. He takes good care of, his band, his crew. And so after that, I didn't see Eric for a long time. He did come to an Earth, Wind, and Fire show, though. Nathan brought him to an Earth, Wind, and Fire show to see me. And that's what Nathan said. And so he said he left that show, impressed. I saw him after the show. Still didn't get a chance to work with him. And I was rolling pretty heavy with Earth, Wind, and Fire then. And then about 3-4 years ago, I did a project, European label called Musikus. And I did a cover of Truth Will Set You Free. And I have a good friend who works at the Hard Rock Cafe. And I was like, man, I really wish I need a special guest on this. I need a special guest. And just out of her mouth, it had to have been God. She said, call Eric. I was like, call Eric Clapton? She was like, yeah, call him. He'll do it. I was like, oh, okay. I said, I don't know how to get in touch with Eric. Can you put me in touch with him? She's like, yeah, I'll work on it. Man, she gets Eric's email address, couple of email address on him. So I was like, man, let me see if this works. I said, okay, I'm gonna just try it. And I sent him a request, man. I sent him an email, just asking if he would play on this song for me. And he hit me right back. He said, yeah, sure, no problem. Just send me the files. So I sent him the files, and he worked on that. He played on that for me, and that was great. And then lo and behold, I was, just kind of hanging out at home. Like, it's been 2.5 years now. I was at the studio just kind of hanging out. Bruce Hornsby calls me and goes, hey man, Eric Clapton just called me, just looking for you. Do you know how to get in touch with him? And I was like, yeah, I know. I got an email address. I hadn't used it in a while, but he's like, yeah, he just called me. He's looking for you. So I emailed him, and then he hit me right back, man. Just said, hey man, would you like to do some shows with me? And I did a one-off with him in Paris. We did this a private date for some billionaire over there, and
Right.
And so after that, he had his tour manager come up to me and Eric, once you're on board, here's the rest of the schedule for the rest of the year. Yeah. And then that turned in, that led, first year went by, it was great. And then second year came by, he decided to he was still working with Gad some too, you know what I mean? And I did a lot of the dates top of the year. Steve did some in the middle of the year. Then we came together and did the Crossroads thing together. Eric wanted us to play together. And then I did some dates at the latter part of that year. And that took us all the way to our last thing that we did just in February, the Ginger Baker tribute.
Oh man, Ginger Baker was great. Yeah.
But we had a whole, this year was stacked, man. We had like a 6-week tour of Europe. And then after that, I was going to be home for a couple of weeks, and then we were going to tour the States, but all of that has been moved to next year.
Yeah. It's funny. You just made me think. I had Al Di Meola on the show the other week, and he says, Preston, he said, my dates for the beginning of the year will move to the spring, then the spring to the summer to the fall. He said, now summer of next year, and that's if everything goes right.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask you, man, I saw a little a clip of you with Bruce Hornsby and Pat Metheny.
Oh, yeah.
Tell me about that, man. That was cool. Yeah, Pat was in the middle, you were on one side, and Bruce was on the other. I says, oh, wow. I was trying to get some footage on that, man. What was that like playing with those guys?
It was incredible, man, because I was a huge Pat Metheny fan, right? Yeah. But I was actually in Bruce's band. I did the Noisemakers for like 16, 17 years, something like that too, right? So Bruce comes to me one day and goes, hey, man, I want you to do this tour with me, but it's just going to be you and I. It was just going to do a duo. I was like, okay, cool, great. So I did this experimental kind of kit with all these like kind of effects and acoustic. Right. I sat on a cajon. I used that for a throne. It was just like, just kind of a real contraption, you know what I mean? Yeah. Because Bruce had written all this quirky stuff with his play that he'd done. So we were actually opening for Pat Metheny that summer. So what would happen is we would come out, do a couple of songs, just me, Bruce, and Pat, the trio like that, because I was actually playing washboard when it's a trio like that, right?
Yeah.
And we played those songs, a couple of songs with Pat, and then Bruce and I would do our set, and then Pat would come out with the Unity Band.
Right.
Yeah. And so that's how that was. So I spent a whole summer touring with Pat, playing with him, I love his music, man.
Me too, man. Me too. He's a genius. I mean, his writing.
Oh,
I just saw him in December at the Kennedy Center. We were talking about his recording. I don't know if you're familiar with it, Secret Story, which is a masterpiece.
Oh, man, that's a classic. Are you kidding me? Yeah. But my project is Still Life Talking.
Oh,
hands down.
Yeah. That Letter from Home, all that stuff that he was doing. Yeah. He's great, man. Yeah. I want to also ask you about Spiral Gyra. You toured with them in 2015, man. How'd you hook up with Spiral Gyra?
Oh, Scott. Scott and I are friends.
Okay.
Yeah, and then
Okay.
I think they were like well, they were in between drummers. And Scott just, hey, he called me, hey man, are you available to do some dates with us? We just got a few dates. And I was like, yeah, sure. Send me the music. And then I met Jay, played with him, rehearsed with them a couple times. Jay was digging what was happening. And so that was, that was kind of how that came about, and that was fun, And I think I was, I was still touring pretty heavily with the Noisemakers,
Yeah.
whose schedule was really kind of, thick, and I was kind of fitting them in. So they decided to, at one point, I couldn't do it because of the conflict of dates, and then I think they got Lee.
Okay.
Yeah, and so, but it was still cool, man, to have a chance to play with Scott, and those cats. That was a fun gig.
Yeah. Yeah.
'Cause
You.
I was a fan growing up too.
Oh, of course, yeah, they were great. I know they remember they used to tour. One time they did a tour with the Rippingtons together. But I was also interested in hearing how you. I think you played a little bit with Steely Dan as well.
Yeah, yeah. That was a recording. I never could get. I got called to do the tour, but I could never work it out. It never worked out scheduling wise for me. I
Ah,
was
okay.
always bumping heads with something else, that I had going on. But I did record with him. I got a chance to get to record Two Against Nature, which actually won Record of the Year
Yeah.
that year. Yeah, and the trip about recording with them, man, it's like, I was like one of like 20 drummers that cut the same songs. And once again, I ended up playing with my boy Tom Barney,
Yeah.
and we tracked songs all day. Me, Tom, and Donald Fagen. Walter was in the booth, and I think Dennis had come in like a week or two before. Before Dennis was Vinny Colaiuta.
Yeah. Denny's.
Before, I mean, before Vinny, Keith Carlock, just all these great guys, and we're all playing the same songs, and just so they just at the end of the day they go through, they cut all this stuff, and I guess they listen to everything, and then they decide what they want to make the record. So when the record came out, it was like I was holding my breath to see if I made the record, and I went, got the record, looked at the credits, I was like, yeah, I made it. I made it.
All
And
right.
then that record won record of the year. Yeah, my Grammy's hanging up here on the wall right here, man. Yeah,
That's beautiful, man. Like I
yeah.
said, just looking at your background, Sonny, you've worked with so many people, Al Jarreau, Stanley Clark. I could just go on and on and on. But one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about is your two sons, man.
Yeah.
I saw them on the stage with you one time, and I just found it very interesting. They're very talented. What is that like, man? Being on stage with your boys,
Oh man, it's exhilarating. Now I know how my father felt. It's exhilarating, man, and it's like, it's really, they have really come into their own. Nigel and Nicholas are both, really gifted kids, man. They
Yeah.
you know what I mean. They honestly have it, and they're writing, they're producing. Nicholas had some success last year with a couple of a number one record. He's, yeah, as a producer with his production partner. My oldest son Nigel um, is doing a lot of work with his younger brother as well. Now they've hooked up with Max Mason, who's the head of Quincy's company out in LA. They're working with Max on some stuff, and
Right.
Nigel's a great engineer. He's engineering my last project. I don't know if you knew. I did a group kind of fusion project, Full Tilt, featuring Sonny Emory. It's on iTunes.
I did. I haven't heard that yet, but I did
But
read about
Nigel,
that.
my oldest son is well, they're involved in every project I do. Uh,
Right.
Nigel actually mixed the last project, and Nicholas sung backgrounds on some of that stuff, And
That's
so yeah, so they're busy, man. I'm proud of them, really proud of them. And they love music, they love it.
just look at their dad. Hey,
And,
you know.
but I use that when I talk to these people about keeping music in the schools and stuff, man. It's like, you have to give these kids something to do. Give them a chance to give them a chance. If they don't
Yeah.
have a music program, they don't have any chance to discover that they may have a talent for playing piano or violin or drums or whatever it is. So it's really important that we support our kids.
Sonny, speaking of music and education and teaching, you're also an educator yourself. And I believe from time to time, weren't you a professor at Georgia State University, or you did some
Yeah.
teaching there? Tell us
Hmm.
about that, man. I mean, is that something you enjoy doing?
Yeah, I love teaching because I love the process. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna take it just a minute, and I'm about to launch my YouTube channel in which I'm doing a complete um, educational study, drum studies. It's
Oh,
called
wow.
Telesis. It's called Telesis, and the concept is Telesis means progress intelligently planned.
Oh,
And I
wow.
think that really applies to what and how I learned to play the instrument. So I have this series coming as far as, the education thing on YouTube. So look out for that. But education to me has always been a big, big part of the thing. Like I said earlier, my mom and dad, my aunt, my uncles, they were all teachers, educators. I
Yeah.
love the process. I love seeing kids progress and get better, when they apply themselves. And so I really enjoyed teaching at Georgia State. I just couldn't continue it because my touring schedule just got crazy, and I couldn't commit to the time period. From time to time, I teach, via Skype and Zoom and whatever. But I love that, man. I do a lot of clinics. Uh, let's see, in 2006, I started the Sonny Emory Drum Camp. Had a great year. By 2007, we had grown the camp and we were getting people coming in to Atlanta from all over the world.
Yeah.
Australia, students from Germany, Italy, um, Britain, and then the economy crashed on us in '08. I was funding everything myself.
Oh, man.
Had a few corporate sponsors, but everybody took such a hit in '08 with the economy going out. I just had to put it on hold for a second. I'm gonna resurrect it at some point though. But right now my focus is, my educational focus is to get this YouTube channel get up and running, because I'm starting from ground zero with this drum thing, and I'm gonna take you from beginning all the way up to advanced playing with some special guests along the way.
That's going to be beautiful, man. I can't wait. I can't wait till you kick that off. I was going to ask you, Sonny, if you're just at home hanging out with your wife, maybe you guys are having a glass of wine or watching a movie or just listening to music, man, what artists do you listen to? What type of music? I know you said you like jazz, but any particular artists that you're checking out, or even drummers that you see on the horizon, say, you know what, that guy's got a lot of talent. Keep my eye on him, or any particular group that you're checking out right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of all over the place musically, man. You know what I mean? I'll get up in the morning and turn on some classical music. You
Yeah,
know, I studied classical music. I was a double major in school,
yeah,
jazz and orchestral major. So I mean, I have an appreciation for it all because I know the complexity of which it takes to actually perform some of that stuff. So I listen to just about everything, man. I'm a huge Michelle Ndegeocello fan.
oh, yeah, great bassist.
I'm a huge Miles Davis fan.
Who isn't?
Yeah, George Duke.
Yeah,
You mentioned Al. I'm a huge Al Jarreau fan. I mean, I had a chance to play with him, obviously, but man, I just, just a huge fan. I'm a huge Dave Grusin fan. I
yeah,
listen to Dave Grusin, a lot of his movie scoring soundtracks. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
a lot of stuff is just, I mean, just beautiful stuff, man. I love Herbie Hancock. I mean,
King.
as far as up and coming drummers, I mean, there's so many of them out there, man. You know, one of my favorite drummers, and by no means is he up and coming, is Chris Dave. Chris is he's such a monster. He's so different, and he's so unique, and I love that. I love guys that have their own voice. You
Yeah,
know, the unfortunate thing today is because of the way the younger generations are learning to play the instrument, I think they are missing some of that individuality, that some of that uniqueness. They're starting to kind of sound the same because they're all drinking from the same well, you know.
yeah. You made
But
me
I mean,
think
there's,
about
there's
something.
definitely
Yeah,
some talented cats out there, man. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Jay, who lives in DC, yeah, I love him. I mean, it's the there are no shortage of great drummers,
right, right.
and they're all seem to be coming through the church too, which is beautiful. I love that. It's
That's,
just that those guys have to like learn, you know, how to play in different circumstances other than just that church framework. You know, nothing's wrong with that. I play in church too,
Right,
you know.
right, right.
But when I go and sit down behind Bette Midler, it requires something different than when I go and play with Bruce Hornsby. They require something totally different than that. You know what I mean? So
Right.
the thing you want to do is you want to try to be as diverse as you possibly can. That's why, you know, I love Dennis and Steve Gadd. Those guys, man, they can play anything.
Yeah.
Play anything, man. You
Yeah.
know, and that has always been my goal, to be, you know, versatile. So when I teach, I'm teaching with that in mind, and I'm trying to make my students as versatile as they can possibly be. Because if you can't get it, well, I usually tell them, if you can't get a check from over here, guess what? It's gonna be a check over here. But if you can't play this over here, you can't get the check from over here.
Right. That's
You
true.
know?
That's
Yeah.
true. But beautiful, man. Well, listen, man, I want to thank you so much for being on Jazz Talk today. You're an inspiration, one of the greatest drummers out there, and just a cool dude. You know, hang on. I'm about to close out the show. Hang on. Well,
Okay.
you've heard it from the great Sonny Emory. And as the saying goes, if the music grooves and makes you move, it must be jazz. I'm Preston Williams with Jazz Talk signing off. Peace.